creeping up, grabbing on, taking toes to the grave beyond. Sacrifice, holy grail, Shangri-La, fighting to the nail, saying I got a thing for you. What can I do? Yeah, I got a thing for you. I light up like a sparkler, feel it getting warmer, hear the snake charmer.
Hey everybody, good evening. Thank you for being here tonight. It's great to see all of you in the chat once again. It's another well-read review. We've been doing these for quite a while. We are an institution at this point. I know, cringe. Nobody ever thought it would be possible, but it happened through no control of my own. This is all due to the people that have been coming on and contributing, talking about these books, keeping the indie scene thriving and alive. And fluid, open to discussion. We have all kinds of people coming on, giving opinions, stating their point of view, and that's how we want to keep it going forward. So thank you for joining us for the journey. And jumping into the chat, we've got Michael Bancroft. He says hello. Yes, Michael. Hello to you as you sit in the back room, and we will bring you on shortly. Yeah, I do still do streams, Linkovich. Thank you for pointing that out to everybody. Giving all my embarrassing secrets on the internet. We've got Caffeinated Wolf. He's happy to be here joining us today as well. We've got Dale A. I wish this show wasn't so late in the evening. Yeah, I agree. But, I got to put the kids to bed before the adults party a little bit. So I've got my Red Bull and I've got my caffeine. I'm ready to go, guys. 110. Haldir is here. He waves. Hello. We got Mary Mayhem. She says, boop, welcome. It's great to see people who are new in the chat joining us, saying hello. Love to see it. Love to see new faces flowing in. Promise way more content in the future too. So we've got tons of reviews planned for you guys. And I know there's been a bit of a hiatus, but I'm getting things back on track. So look forward to that. Citizen Ronan, great to see you. Thank you for joining us today. And who else do we have? Paulus Arts. He was falling asleep waiting. That's not a good setup. We don't want to start off on that foot. We want to keep it going, keep it lively, keep it happy. We've got Elasmat in the chat. He says, hail to the chat. Always, always. Yeah, we're going to have a bit of a party. We're going to talk about today. It's Narwhal. Somebody who's a good friend of the channel. We've had him on a lot of times, talked about all of his works. So this is one that we have overlooked for quite some time. It's good to catch up on it finally. Hotel Story. And it's an interesting one, guys. So we've been going over it a little bit in the back, and there's going to be quite a lot to say about it. Hey, Georgina Floyd, great to see you. So I guess with that, let's get into it. We've got a great panel, a lot of expertise here, guys. People who have tons of insights, know what they're talking about, and we'll be here to partake in a little bit of a discussion and pass on some of that knowledge to you. So sit back, relax, enjoy, and please welcome Andy Andrew.
Tons of insight, know what they're talking about. Why the hell am I here?
I've been lied to. I take no responsibility for this.
So yeah. I weaseled my way in. I coerced you. I tempted you with, I don't know, cookies, coffee, and beer. I don't know. I got nothing.
All of my favorites. Yeah.
All right. Excellent. See, it worked. My evil plan is working. Thank you so much for having me back on, Well-Read. I appreciate you.
Oh, great to have you. And yeah, speaking of evil plans, we have with us as well, Michael Bancroft.
Oh, I wondered who you were going to bring in.
I know, yeah.
because Lit
How
Dev
do you
has
not
a
bring
lot.
in Lit Dev when you say
Oh,
that?
Dev, I screwed that up. Okay.
He messed it up.
Speaking of evil plans,
Fix it.
Literature Devil.
There it is.
Hello.
There we go. All right.
Yeah,
And now-
Michael's the good guy here.
Now
Like,
the guy with all the good plans, the
Right?
superhero, Michael Bancroft.
Everything is proceeding according to my design.
everything is proceeding as I have foreseen it. Like,
The story is just writing itself, guys. Come on. When is the comic for this stream coming out?
right?
Yeah.
It could be its own whole thing.
They got the villainous Lit Devil and the heroic Michael Bancroft and the bribing.
The one who pretends to know what they're talking about.
Exactly,
Andy
the guy
Andrew.
with the beer and cookies, Andy Andrew.
I mean, let's be honest. If there was anything I was going to be reduced down to, if it was going to be, he's the guy that has beer and cookies. All right, I'll take it.
Cookies are good.
Like I can, I'm not going to dunk cookies in beer or anything. That's what milk's for. Give a mouse a cookie, he's going to want some milk. But I'll take them individually of each other.
Sure, beer and cookies are good together, but they are good individually.
Yeah, no, it's like certain things on pizza. I can like the thing and I can like pizza, but sometimes the marriage of the two is an unholy union.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I usually I try to take my beer and my cookies apart and not together. So
Exactly.
that's the
That's
way you
wise.
do it. That is wise. But what I do like to take together is my Narwhal and my comics. I find the marriage of both is quite special. Meaning of
Experience.
it's an experience.
That sounds like a holy matrimony.
Absolutely. So let the ceremonies begin, guys. Let me bring up Narwhal's Indiegogo. So this is actually an interesting story behind this story, hotel story. I'm just going to keep saying that over and over. But
You're gonna chat. Y'all are gonna hear the word story probably more than a few times tonight.
Yeah,
Just be forewarned.
it would be weird if we didn't talk about the story in hotel story and just focused on the art. But we are
Yeah.
going to do both.
We can multitask or pretend to.
This is a collaboration with Narwhal and another creator, which actually just came to light a little bit in the back room because there's a lot of similarities between the work here in the comic, the art itself, and Narwhal's usual offerings. So
It's like Narwhal found
Narwhal.
his doppelganger, his
Yeah.
art
Yeah.
doppelganger. Out
Yeah.
there.
It reminds
I
me of
read
a
this
lot of
whole
the
thing. I had no idea.
same. I'll announce my ignorance right now. I thought Narwhal drew the thing, because I've been familiar with Narwhal's work for the last several years, since probably somewhere around 2018 or so, and I just I never even thought twice. I guess I saw the art in the book. I'm like, oh, this looks like Narwhal's work, right? And I was like,
Yeah,
cool.
me too.
All right, yeah,
I
fine.
didn't even look at the credits.
I didn't even think twice about it.
And it was Narwhal.
Yeah, and it's funny when Bancroft, God bless him, mentioned it's like he found a doppelganger. I was like, that actually really reminds me of mangaka who will train people when they're just working on a ton of things at once. They'll train people to draw in their style specifically, right? You find that with guys over with One Piece or Kashimoto for Naruto and things like that. They'll have little copycat, little mini-me's, and people who can draw exactly like them. Now, I have a feeling that Narwhal just happened to be so gosh darn lucky of a guy to find somebody that could just draw like him in general, rather than training somebody to draw like him. But I find that hysterical to me.
it is interesting that he refers to Jared, who is the artist who we're talking about, as his frequent collaborator. So I wonder if this isn't the first time. So that would be interesting to hear from Narwhal if they've actually done some things together before. And this is maybe the first time that it's just been published and mentioned up front.
Dale
Jared-
says Jared Jewell had already developed his style before the book started. So yeah, they just probably, it was a melding of kindred spirits.
Fascinating. Well, so the book is drawn by Jared, not Narwhal, edited by Narwhal, with colors by both, and both of them on writing duties. So it should be very interesting then.
That's a full-on collaboration if I've ever heard of one.
Yeah, because even the colors are very Narwhal.
Mhm.
They're very reminiscent of his previous works. So but now that I know this, I'm looking at faces and I'm thinking, oh yeah, that is a lot more sort of caricature-esque.
Mhm.
Narwhal, in his, say for instance in Earthbound, the faces are handled differently, and now it seems obvious, but at the time I guess I wasn't really paying that close of an attention to it.
Well, I'll be honest here, and I'll be the first jerk of the night. And it's not really jerk as intended. Narwhal's one of those guys who's a talent, and he's a talent who has a specific style that doesn't usually jive with me. It's one of those things where two things can be true at once, and I can acknowledge something as being incredibly impressive and it's stylistic, and it might just not be stylistic for me. But I'm something that really stuck out to me in this book and has always stuck out to me with Narwhal's style is how he shows movement. Like, he does a really good job of showing movement with all of his work. And the gentleman that he got for his art on this that I thought was him initially up until, I don't know, 20 minutes ago, did a great job of replicating that or doing that all on his own. It's a really interesting thing because his style worked really well for the story that was being told.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't think that's a particularly controversial statement. I think in the scene where a lot of emphasis is placed on details and rendering and, you know, all the fantastic artistry that exists out there, Narwhal went in the exact opposite direction and pared it all down just to line and gesture only.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people, who just don't get his style at all.
Yeah, it's one of those things where after I finished reading the book, I was like, this is a book, having read it and looked at the quality of the story, looked at the quality of the art. This is a book that I would buy for the sake of supporting something of quality. But I might not go back just to look at the art over and over and over again, because it's just not necessarily my taste. And I guess, to be fair, there are a lot of artists out there that people love and give massive accolades to that I'm just like, I get it. Like, okay, yeah, I don't blame you.
Yeah,
but I wouldn't put them in my top whatever, right?
I am a fan of Narwhal's art, but I genuinely as well don't tend to go back and check out his pages. I'm not a fan for that reason. I'm a fan for the way the art and the panels flow and the way the characters, they're very, like I said, with the gesture, they tell a lot with a minimal amount of lines and flourishing and everything. And I remember defending the way that he's able to do sexy ladies and everything in such a loose style. And people really did not agree with that. But anyway, this isn't even Narwhal's art, so we're kind of getting
it's true. Yeah, the I guess to circle it back around, the art just in general in this book is super simplistic, but it does a fantastic job of portraying movement and expressiveness in the characters. Like, that was something that stood out to me. Like, the style itself is not my jam. This is not a style whereas, like, if I was writing a book, I want this guy on it for sure. However, reading this book, it services the story so well. And that's a compliment. Like, I want to be clear on here. Like, just because two things can be true at once, just because the style isn't necessarily my personal preference and my personal jam is not a knock to the artist. The artist did a great job of portraying movement and expressiveness in proportion and with relation to the story that was being told on the page. And that was something that did actually stand out to me when I was reading it.
I don't know if we'd be jerks if we compared the two and wondered who might be better.
Well, I mean, I've already proven myself to be the ignoramus and thought it was Narwhal all along.
Well,
right?
Actually, if we want to start off the critiquing, I actually did notice some little things, some little elements that I was like, oh, Narwhal is usually a bit more fastidious. He's a bit more eye for detail than what I'm seeing here. So I wondered if it's such a long book, he had a deadline, he was missing some small elements.
It was a long book.
Exactly.
And props to him, because it was 123 pages or something like that. Like, that's guys, that in print on anything that isn't like 2021 Marvel like baking paper quality, that's a thick book. 120 plus pages is a thick book.
kind of felt to me like this was Narwhal like slowed down. So like Narwhal's art is it goes fast because it's about movement and everything. So I thought this was like Narwhal's slow, like just Narwhal's art slowed down. So I thought it was like a little bit more wonky, but it's a very long book and everything. And so I thought it is slower than usual. Like usually it's like it just flows from panel to panel, even if they're sitting down. It's like panel to panel, stuff is happening, stuff is moving. So that's what I thought. It was just like his stuff slowed down, but I would say Narwhal is better. Like Narwhal's actual art, he's a little is better overall.
I'm not as familiar, even though I'm aware of Narwhal and I've known of his presence and seen him on streams for coming on. What are we in 2024? Back last quarter of 2024. I've known about him since like 2018, 2019, whenever he really popped up. I'm not nearly as acutely familiar enough with his work to be able to make that call. However, I'm tangentially familiar with it enough to have seen the art in this book and initially been like, oh, okay, so he wrote and drew the thing. Okay, cool. Like that takes a lot of work.
Something that stuck out to me in the art in this book is there's no it's kind of an artist term, but there's no anti-aliasing on any of the line art, so it's very jagged. And because of that, some of the flats, the colors actually go over the line, and I sort of noticed that, and it kind of I looked at, oh, that's actually kind of a mistake. And that whenever that happens, it can you're thinking about other things than the story.
Yeah.
What I did, it was mentioned earlier that Narwhal did the backgrounds. So it looks like Narwhal did these 3D backgrounds, and then is it Jared? Jared did the characters, which gave the effect of like an old cartoon, where they would paint the backgrounds and then the cartoon characters on top. And I really liked that effect together. I thought that was great.
I love that you bring that up, Michael, because for the last few days, I've been racking my brain trying to remember the cartoon that I saw growing up as a kid. And it was a cartoon that was older than I was, to be clear, that had an art style that Narwhal's style, and I guess to his credit, this gentleman's Jared Jewell, that was his name, that it also reminds me of. And for the love of me, I cannot remember the name of like the movie or the cartoon that I saw that has in it, but it is like an old style cartoon style that has this very kind of elongated movement, hyper emphasized type of style to it that's always been super intriguing to me. It's not necessarily my go-to, but it's impressive to me when it's utilized optimally, right? And I think that was done for the most part in this book, because like I said before, the way that movement was portrayed, the expressiveness of the characters really popped out to me.
Well, here's Narwhal in his own words about Jared and what he thinks of his work. Narwhal met Jared 12 years ago in Iowa City at an animation game dev student organization on campus. Jared organized a comic jam with the club, and Narwhal noticed his iconic style even then. Jared's influence pulls a lot from 1950s UPA-style German expressionist painting and 1970s Gekiga, as well as some contemporary artists like Tom Moore and Natsume Ono. In an era where almost all cartoony styles look like Adventure Time, Jared's style stands out. Narwhal literally refers to it in shorthand as Jared's iconic style when discussing art direction. While Narwhal and Jared have assisted each other on some smaller projects, Hotel Story struck them, as the standout script to feature Jared's unique aesthetic. So there you are. Take it or leave it, but that
makes me feel awful now. I read this whole thing.
That's great, heartwarming history and story to them, and then we just did that. That's,
because it's not as if artists' styles are 100% locked in. They can try to go a bit more cartoony, a bit more realistic, a bit more rendered, a bit faster. So that's just what I figured it was. So I apologize, Jared. Not acknowledge you in my mind canon as I was reading.
Yeah. No, I think opinions are fine, critiques are fine. Nobody,
No, absolutely.
yeah,
And
nobody has anything to.
artists are for the most part multifaceted in what they're able to do, especially in the indie scene. I've seen so many artists that are capable of doing so many different things, whether it's doing a cool pinup or doing some fantastic sequentials at a variety of paces, right? And um, it's a difficult thing to really lock in, and it's possible that the pacing, that because it was it Michael, you mentioned earlier that the pacing for his art felt different from, or
Mhm.
maybe it was Lit, maybe it was both of you,
I think it
because
was
I was
Lit.
I was the ignoramus that
But
was
I
like,
agree.
I thought this was Narwhal all along, right? And you both mentioned, I think, honestly, that the pacing was different than Narwhal's, and that's what stuck out to you. And it's possible that was an editorial choice, because if Narwhal was the editor and he was the main writer on the project, then he could have said to the artist, well, like, I think this panel works, but this one doesn't. This sequence doesn't flow the way that I'm envisioning. Like, you have that power if you are in charge. So this was just, I think, one of those things where this is what the collective vision was between the two of them. And I enjoyed the ultimate end product.
So, setting up a little bit of the storyline here that they both worked on together. Hotel Story is described as a story about the witch Salome casts a 6-part spell from the top floor suite of Hotel Constantinople, a mass sacrifice to renew an ancient contract. For a little bit of a synopsis before we get into storyline, Michael, would you mind helping us out with that and give us your general overview of what you thought Hotel Story was about?
Yeah, so imagine you're in the hotel lobby of a busy hotel. There's people coming and going everywhere, all different kinds of people. There's all sorts of things going on. So in this story, you've got a tennis tournament, a kind of seminar for like coaching or what, like those sort of, whatever they are. And then you just got other various people, and they're all quite different in terms of who they are, their personalities. This super arrogant, crazy guy is creating a ruckus, and everyone's noticing. You got the people who
was
work
that
there,
guy.
the staff. Exactly.
If you've worked retail or food industry, you have met that guy, and you don't like that guy, but you know how to handle that guy.
So straight away, I mean right away from the very first page, it is just, you are in this swirl, like a whirlwind of different characters' events. And it is actually a massive credit to these two guys that they were able to do that in a way that was like grabbed you right away, and you just like swept up in it, and you're following all these people's comings and goings. And even if I don't remember everyone, I don't really remember anyone's name, but I remember who they are. And then very, very quickly, and one of them is a pizza delivery boy.
Yeah.
And he gets sent up to the penthouse, and then straight, I mean, not a spoiler because it happens right away, he gets sent up to the penthouse and sacrifice essentially, as part of this what is it, like a magic spell that cocoons the hotel in its cosmic sort of bubble, and then it's on, and now the story begins, and then craziness ensues.
Michael, I'm so glad you that you were the one to bring that forth, because I was already the jackass earlier. When you said like you couldn't remember any of the characters' names, that was me. Like when I finished the book, I was like, I can't remember like anybody's names except for
They have names?
except for Salome and what was it, Adrian? And
I
I
don't
was
think
like,
it's terribly important though,
right.
So,
Well, it was interesting because it reminded me in a lot of ways of your, and I don't want to use the word standard or the term run of the mill in a negative light. Your kind of standard either murder mystery or
Horror
slasher horror type of thing, where you're not actually meant to latch on to any one particular character or another. You're meant to just be interested in the overall story that's being told.
Yeah, I would say
that's what this
more like
felt
a whodunit, like a
Yeah.
Murder on the Orient
Yeah.
Express sort of style.
Exactly, because
You get all the
nobody in the
characters.
cast really stuck out to me as like memorable or particularly likable, or was like, man, I really hope this guy doesn't get it right type of a thing. Other than like the one jerk off, that I think you were referring to earlier, that was being super bombastic. Oh, hey, get me your manager, blah blah blah. It's like, all right, I've dealt with this guy before.
We're kind of just meant to know that
story.
they exist. Like,
Yeah.
That's kind of your typical slasher setup. Like, here's a bunch of characters that you don't necessarily are going to know or know the names of, but you do know they exist, and here they are, and now you're going to watch them die.
Well, here's the thing.
what
Here's the
benefits.
thing, though. Like in the slasher, since you brought up the terminology slasher, in the slasher, you always have that guy that is the guy that you immediately hate, and you're, this jerk. I cannot wait for him to get it, and he didn't get it yet.
He probably has his girlfriend too. Usually in slashers, traditional slashers, usually the more chaste you are, the more likely you are to live.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, if you
that's
ever
like the
do
fun.
it, that's it. You're done for.
You're out of there.
You'll probably get killed in the middle of doing it, right? If we're
Especially
talking
if
like
you're by a
Friday the
lake,
13th or something,
Friday
right?
the Jason really doesn't like that.
I love
70% of the internet would survive a slasher.
I'm gonna admit right now, I'm so proud of myself for understanding the assignment there, because I'm actually not a classical horror guy. Like I've only seen the first entry of a lot of like the classic cult horrors. I've seen the first Halloween, I've seen the first Friday the 13th. So I actually have not seen Jason.
Jason goes to space.
The first Nightmare on Elm Street and all of those. I saw The Thing and yada.
Well, the
yada,
first
yada.
one wasn't even Jason anyway, so you're.
No, it was his mom. Yeah, it was his mom. Right, and so it's just like I understood the assignment there without actually having been super seeped into the horror culture, because for the most part, I prefer like supernatural horror type stuff rather than slashers. That's neither here nor there. But to the circle it back around, that I'm glad that most of us are in agreement here on the story and with regards to the characters, where it felt like the characters themselves weren't necessarily, or at least they didn't feel that way. So I hope that was the intention, that the characters themselves weren't incredibly important, because they didn't come across as incredibly important.
It is a really big cast. I mean, so we remember,
it's a massive cast.
Remember all of them. Like there's the pizza delivery boy, there's the drunk, there's the
Just don't ask me their names.
All the different like names, 20 of them.
Also, we get introduced to them at breakneck speed. Like, here's this guy, here's this guy, here's this guy, here's this guy. We get like a visual memory of them, but not really a name. And also, the names didn't really matter. This guy, the pizza guy, dies like immediately. So do a lot of them. The hotel manager, like, you think there's gonna be a setup for her, but she's like, "Oh man, I got to deal with this misogynist man or something," and then she dies later on, real quick, lickety split. So yeah, we're not supposed to be invested in these characters, but we are here to watch them die in horrific and probably amusing ways,
and figure out how to. Because at one point, so a little bit into the story, you realize that they're doing this. Sort of, it's like a love. When they kiss, they transfer this thing that turns them essentially into a kind of drone zombie for the witch, and they're just trying to get everyone who's still alive and around kissed, so that then they are part of that group. So then you've got that kind of, it's almost like a zombie movie trope where you've got a handful of survivors who are trying to figure out how to get out of this situation that they find themselves in, surrounded by all these people that are now turned. And mixing, you've got these outer kind of beings, liminal angels, and they, one of them gets in and he can jump from dead body to dead body. There's lots of fun stuff happening that they can play with there. So it really does launch into that. In the first kind of third of the book, and now you're actually finding some characters you really almost are sort of rooting for, like the tennis player,
big nose guy.
It's interesting because there was, and maybe this is because I don't know how many parts this is supposed to be. I wasn't going into it. I had no idea if this was a one-off or if this was a two-parter or a three-parter. Based off just this entry alone, I wasn't certain how much I was supposed to know about any one given character or another. So, like, I was given a tantalizing amount of information about Adrian, this what was it, luminal angel is what he was. And that was interesting to me. I was like, okay, so there's something going on here. However, there was a lot of emphasis and focus put on, I can't for the life of me remember. He was a brunette male character. He was the dude that seemed like maybe he was actually at this hotel to start something and be a problem. Like he was here to, like, I don't know, kill somebody or something like that.
Oh, yeah. He had the plans.
Yeah, like there was something with this character, and then we find out nothing about the character beyond that. That was probably the most frustrating part about the book for me.
Yeah, he wanted to write a manifesto or something.
Yeah, he was like, should I write a
gonna do
manifesto or what? What does one do in a situation like this? I was like, wait, is this guy like, is he about to try and put a hit on somebody, or is he like going to be like a mass shooter type of a character? Like, what's going on with this character? And we don't find out anything about him beyond that, because then all of a sudden he's thrust into the situation where he has to make a decision to where he has to like either choose to save and help this other chick or not, and then he becomes part of this like survivor type cast. It's like, okay, so is this something that's going to become important moving forward? I would like to know, because that's an interesting hook, and inquiring minds would like to know. Inquiring minds being me, if that wasn't clear.
I hear that. I think it is definitely, it reminds me of The Walking Dead, where you got that similar thing. It's a whole bunch of survivors, and bit by bit you slowly pass out what they were doing before the zombie apocalypse. And I think it's probably going to be similar to,
was this person actually a good person before the apocalypse, or were they a schmuck, right?
Yeah.
What do you think, Literature Devil? Were there enough aspects of the story to anchor you as you're going through all of these different characters, and they're just all being gradually eliminated one by one?
Oh yeah, eventually. It took a little while because there's a lot of introduction. But I think by the time you get to like past a quarter or getting close to half the book, you really start to get grounded in who's who and who's doing what, who are the people we're trying to cheer for, and everything's been established. So by that time, you see these people you get to feel more of their character. So at that point, I was eventually hooked. I was like, okay, here we go. Here are the guys that are going to be the team that kind of challenges the witch and helps Adrian, the liminal angel, take him down. And then we get this fight with Adrian and the witch and Amir, who's like this crazy swordsman guy, and the assistant / lover of the witch. And so we get more stuff. You get eventually you're kind of like
I read him as a simp.
the simp, the witch simp. It's like
witch simp.
It kind of begins. It feels like in the beginning we are kind of floating around trying to find ourselves, trying to find like where to land, and then boom, once we land, we're off, and things start to ramp up pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little bit where I think this art style falters, is because I was having trouble remembering in all these characters exactly which chick was which, because some of them, I don't know, I'm sure if I went back and I looked at them, they would all be perfectly identifiable. But in the moment, and if anyone has ever read a Narwhal book, you read it at pace. You read it at the pace that the pages turn. You're just going. It's like a movie. It's great. I didn't stop to go back and check.
That's why pacing is so important.
Yeah, and I remember thinking, oh, I don't know if this is the tennis girl. I don't know if this is the concierge. Like I remember thinking that, and like I didn't know, and that's where I would have, if I was helping edit the art on this, I would say we need every single one of these characters to look really different to each other,
and that's
because you got so many in here.
That might be one of the things that I don't want to even say take issue with, because I want to be clear, like stylistic choices when it comes to art, it's a stylistic choice, and it's going to be for some people, it's going to be not be for some people, right? And I'm one of those people that falls into that category of this is not like my style here. However, despite it working for the story being told, it does lack, and I agree with you there, it lacks that distinction, because a lot of characters, like a lot of the female characters in this, have more or less the same facial structure, and there might be slight differences to the hairstyle. The males, it's like a lot of the males actually have similar facial structure to some of the female characters, but others like that are very much meant to be like these masculine, like the dude that had, what was it? He had Jack and Jill tattooed onto his hands. That Adrian takes possession of his body at one point, which was pretty cool. To be honest,
I think the males were handled better in that sense, because there's a real big difference between that big guy and then that little drunk.
Yeah, exactly. Like there was a very stark delineation between those. But when it came to the female characters, it's like you could
a lot of the women
line them all up,
slender, mid height, similar-ish hair, same kind of nose. So there was, and
they all had my nose, which nobody wants that.
But, like the guys look visually distinct. Like I could tell, like big nose guy, giant man. At the ear looks very distinct.
Has a strange mustache thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, all the guys look very distinct. So I kind of could figure out which guys were who. Like there's the jerk. I know who he is. But yeah, the manager I could tell because she's the only one like wearing like a suit and had like a this nice cut blonde hair. This I guess she's like the manager. This lady,
she had the Karen haircut. Actually, she didn't act like one, but she had the haircut.
Yeah, it was like, I don't know what to call it. I mean, it's like short cut hair, and then that's kind of it. The other girls kind of look very similar to each other. I did have issue with that. Yeah, it's like who's this person? Who's this lady? And I didn't go back either because it's fast paced. I was like, okay, I gotta keep going. Keep going. Don't have time to go back.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm somebody who is usually very character driven, story focused. I get hooked on casts of characters because of the individual characters within them. That's how I get hooked onto a story overall, because events that are playing out in a story aren't always necessarily within a given character's control, but what is in their control is their reaction to those, and that's more interesting to me. Not everybody agrees with that, and that's fine. But that's usually what ends up hooking me. It's like, okay, what's this character's personality? What's their involvement in what's going on? Why is whatever is happening in the overarching story and in this world, whether it's fantasy, sci-fi, whatever, why is this important to them? How are they going to react to it? That's what usually endears me to a cast, and therefore, subsequently, the story overall. But this story, I enjoyed overall. However, I was not endeared to the cast really at all. Like there was there wasn't enough there for me to be endeared to the cast. But to the credit of Narwhal and his team, I enjoyed the story regardless. And that's not something I want to put specific emphasis on this. That's not something that is the norm for me. Normally, if I'm not endeared to a cast, I do not care about the story.
The character that you probably most get connected to would be Adrian.
Yeah, and he was interesting. Yeah, the liminal or luminal, whatever it was, Angel.
There's intrigue there.
There was intrigue, and there was like enough there that once it ended, I was like, wait, why isn't there more? I want to know more about him, and I want to know more about this dude that looks like, he might have been an attempted like either mass shooter or whatever. We still don't know. We have no idea about the dude with the brunette hair, right? That wound up like helping out some of the other characters. And so that was curiosity for me. But I need more. However, to their credit, I still enjoyed the story.
I'm most also connected to the tennis player chick. For whatever reason, I think there's probably just a little bit more there that was set up. So there's, and I think she was kind of one of the main focuses of the survivors.
She was the one with like I'm trying to remember, and this is unfortunately the negative aspect of like the art style and at what we were talking about a minute ago, where like some of them kind of blend and bleed together. She was the one that was like slightly tanned and had darker hair.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. It was one of those hairstyles where I feel like if it was in a more detailed art style, she would probably be somebody who was of a skin tone with more melanin in it and had maybe some sort of a dreads type hairstyle that was up, right? And she was interesting. So I'm with you. I'm with you there.
Did it feel like it was meant to be just more narrative driven, or were you going kind of just through a sequence of events without really having much of an arc throughout?
It's a genre story. So it's Murder on the Orient Express set in a hotel with crazy witches and
zombies.
stuff. So that's the sort of story that it is.
It's dead with orgy zombies.
yeah. But you get the Narwhal and Jared effect of what that is. So yeah, it isn't. You're not. It's not really a deep character study or anything. It's following the events of this thing and how it's going to play out.
The characters aren't plot devices necessarily in the strictest sense, but they're just tools to continually move the plot forward, rather than for you to necessarily get hooked on and endeared to one particular character over another. At least that's the way that I read it, and that's a personal thing because I didn't get endeared to one particular character over another. I was interested in what necessarily was going on with Adrian, the Luminal Angel, or I don't even remember his name, the dude that was whatever. He was probably intending on being bad news for whatever was going on at this hotel, and then he wound up having to join up with some of the survivors towards the back third of the book.
Yeah, the guy that's just making a big fuss at the beginning, where he arrives with his hooker.
that dude. No, he's the. So this is where I drew the comparison to like slashers or murder mystery type stuff, where like you're not necessarily supposed to like get super hooked on one particular character or another, other than like that there's going to be one or two characters that you definitely want to see get their just desserts, and he is on the list.
Yeah,
because he was just a jerk from line one. His first panel, he was a prick, he was a prat, and I was like, all right, so if people are dying in this book, he needs to be one of them.
Yeah, but he could end up becoming. He could actually have an arc out of anyone.
He could
become like a
he
hero.
absolutely
could redeem himself. So,
and you're right. I just don't know where the story is going from here yet.
Is there also a mystery?
I was disappointed that it didn't end. It's like a to be continued. Like I was like, 120 pages. It's going to be a really good story. But then I got it's going, and then we got to be continued. I was like, oh man, for 123 pages, you'd think it would be like a whole story.
It felt like it ended. I don't want to say it completely abruptly, but I felt like there could have been just a little bit more.
It was kind of building up to this moment. Like, what is the spell doing? Like, what exactly are they doing the orgy zombies for?
But we still don't know, though, is the thing. Like, we had 120 plus pages, and it built up to this moment that ended up being kind of a cliffhanger. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I am genuinely curious to see what happens next. So I will read whatever happens next. And once Narwhal pops in here, I'll beg him for, I don't know, an opportunity to, PayPal him or something like that for his book.
They did choose to end it at the right time if they had, decided this was going to be a long story.
Oh yeah, definitely.
If this was a 2 or 3 parter, then they chose the right time.
Yeah, it is a little bit of a dip, but I'm with you, Lit Dev. I was like, I thought it would end. So I was.
There's 120 pages. People don't realize that's a meaty book.
That's a lot. Yeah.
That's for a one. Removing ourselves, we're all comic book people here. Removing ourselves from what the general mainstream modus operandi has been for the last decades, for putting out 22 to 26 page books, 30 if you're lucky, and you spread that out over, I don't know, like a 5 or 6 issue arc, and you tell a complete story there. 120 plus pages for a single creator or just a small creative team, like just 2 or 3 people, that's a big book. It's a really big book. A lot of indie guys will put out a 26 to 32 page book, and that's not a knock to them. there's just a lot of effort involved in creating a comic book.
You
Lit
have
knows this.
to.
Michael knows this.
I do. I just put out 100-page book.
Yeah.
But actually,
no,
you know,
that was meant to be a layup. Like plug your shit.
it is. So you've got, you know, you can with comic books you can have a more compressed pace or a decompressed pace.
Mhm.
And Narwhal always, well, so far that I've seen, works in a more to the decompressed end, which means 120 pages in a Narwhal story is not necessarily as going to be as much as you get in a Mike Barron story. 120 pages Mike Barron, you get like, it'll be this massive long epic because, you know,
All right,
he's
so-
much more compressed with his storytelling. So there
Right
is
in the Bible,
You
essentially.
just gave me the layup, and I'm gonna say this because I get to. And those who don't know, I'm the creative manager and lead editor over at the Rippaverse. Mike Barron just recently put out "Gooding the Polymath." This book is just this book in terms of story is shy of 70 pages, and there is a lot packed into this. So there are writers out there, and Mike Barron's been doing this since, you know, before I was born. Practically, that's why I look up to him so much. Where he can pack in a ton of story into just the either optimal or just a minimal amount of pages that he wants. It's up to him. It's his choice, right? He can be like, you know what, I'm gonna tell a banger story in 64 pages, you know, and some people might come away from that and wishing, I wish it was twice that. And that's fair because Mike Barron just tells a phenomenal story because he's Mike Barron. He's been doing this longer than most of us have been alive. But yeah, gosh, I'm just, don't do that to me. Like now I'm just wishing that Gooding the Polymath was 120 pages of Mike Barron storytelling and being like, oh my gosh, this is like the greatest thing ever. Don't do that to me. 120 pages, guys. The point is, that's a lot. That's a lot. And Narwhal told a very intriguing story within 120, what was it, 3 pages for this book? Like
Because
I am
I enjoyed
chomping
it.
at the bit to figure out what the heck happens next. And that's
Yeah,
important, right? You want your audience to be like, so what's next? What happens next? And when do I get my hands on it? That's the point, right? That's the hook. So they got me. They got me with that.
What do you... Sorry, go ahead, Michael.
I was gonna say I didn't like. Just want to make it clear, I didn't feel unsatisfied at all by the end of it. I felt like, okay, this is, you know, even though it hasn't finished the story like I thought it would, it got to a point where, you know, like Andrew said, I'm hooked. I want to know. Let's keep going and let's see the rest. But you know, it's a stylistic choice to tell a compressed story or a decompressed story, which one ever they picked. So.
What are they choosing to use to carry you, though? So it sounds like, okay, so people are getting killed and they're running around this hotel, and there's a lot of characters and a lot of people
are
getting
making
killed.
out with each other to spread this possession or whatever it is.
There are no character arcs. It didn't sound like there was much of a mystery. You know the villain up front. Maybe there's some questions about the powers. Is it mainly a chase story? What exactly is getting you through the 120 pages?
I think the
of
only
these sequence of
mystery.
events?
So I think the only mystery, maybe there are 2 mysteries. One of which being this character we keep talking about. That's this brunette male, the slender dude that, you know, he's the one that has the gun. He clearly is capable despite not being one of the like super jacked characters that gets, you know, taken possession of throughout the course of this first book. What was he up to? What were his actual intentions with being at this hotel? Because we don't know yet, because he was clearly super, to me, he was super sus originally, like in his initial panels. And then it gets to the point where it's like, oh, now he's making the choice whether he's going to help this chick.
He came in with a fake ID, I think.
Yeah. So I was genuinely curious about his character. I was curious about his character, and I was interested in Adrian's character because this like angelic type figure that we're told, at least, that is in direct opposition to this witch character, Salome. The other mystery, if we want to call it that, is what is Salome's actual end game. Beyond that, I mean, the story is, it's really strange to me. Like I said, normally I am very character motivated in terms of what drives me with a story. And this book, there's none of that practically. It's just like the overall premise has me curious. That's
Also,
a credit. That's a credit to the writing, as far as I'm concerned, for me.
Well, this book is also a lot of pages get eaten up by the fact there's a lot of perspectives. So you got Salome, you got the people who are trying to hide out in the hotel room, and then you got the group that's running around. And then so you have to jump between several groups, including Adrian and everything. So that eats up a lot of pages. When you have a lot of perspectives, you have a lot of groups you have to keep up with. That eats up a lot of pages. So that's also there. But every single thing has something going on. So okay, we're gonna check in with this group now, and they're going to this mirror world. And we're checking up with the guys trying to stay in the apartment or trying to stay in the hotel room, and they're meeting Adrian or something. And okay, we're with Salome now; she's fighting Adrian and stuff like that. So there's a lot of different perspectives we have to jump to, but what keeps you going and what makes it easy to read and easy to go through all these different jumping points is the fact that something's always happening. There's some new challenge that they have to overcome, or situation they're running into.
Yeah, I agree, and I keep going back to Zombie, and I'm gonna reference Walking Dead. It's a little bit like that, where you don't really know anyone at the start. You know a little bit, but they're in this situation where they have to survive and they have to band together. It's going to be difficult, and every way they turn, a new challenge is going to pop up. They're getting hunted by things, new things getting hunted. They have to figure things out. I would say it's not the mystery. I didn't really, to me, it's sort of almost, inconsequential to the story. To me, it was just fun. I was just having fun. I was enjoying it. I think, I was enjoying the writing. I was enjoying the pacing. I was enjoying how kind of wacky and weird it all was. And as you progress, you're having fun. You're turning pages. You just start to want to see what's going to happen next. And they keep throwing strange things like this at you, like this angel can possess dead bodies. It doesn't really matter what happens to them. They chop the head off, the head starts talking, the body kind of goes around by itself, and as long as the eyes can see, the body knows where to go. It's all sorts of weird little fun things like that make this book very entertaining. I think that's mostly what I took away from it. It's just an unexpected, entertaining story, and that's really what drove me along as I was reading it.
Well, so if it's going through these events, then the cliffhanger, was there any foreshadowing that moment was going to be part of that storyline, or was it abruptly kind of
It was a bit abrupt, because
it didn't feel like it was. Sorry, go ahead.
We didn't know what the witch was doing. We knew she was doing a spell, but we didn't really know what it was really for until the very end, when we realize she's trying to summon, I guess, her master or whoever she worships or whatever. So that could have just as easily been she does some other thing that they could have potentially thwarted in the last 30 pages of the book. I didn't know how it was going to end. So it was a little abrupt, but again, I wasn't unsatisfied because I was enjoying myself. I'm like, oh, cool, I get to enjoy it more. And now that I think about it and we're talking about it, there are a lot of things, a lot of loose ends that have not been tied up. So that makes sense that it didn't end, actually.
Yeah, it feels like if we're going to compare it like we were earlier to like your classic slasher or murder mystery type formula, there are a lot of things that haven't happened yet. And so it does make sense for them to have left it on this sort of pseudo cliffhanger. It didn't necessarily feel like it came out of completely left field for me, as based on just like looking at, while I was reading it, looking over to the right at the page count continually going up, I was like, this story, because again, like I said before, I had no idea whether this was a 1-part or 2-part or 3-part or whatever. I was like, this story doesn't end here. There's going to be another book after this. And so in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, so there's going to be probably some sort of a cliffhanger or some sort of a moment where it's like, ooh, what's going to happen next? And I hope that the result of all the events leading up to that leaves me into that place of wanting to know what happens next. And it did do that. It succeeded because you end right with this like big gigantic, you have Salome there at this like pool or whatever, and you have this big old demon looking fella, and you're like, oh, so she was communing with something bad. What was but the dialogue between the two of them was such that it implies a prior relationship of some sort, in the way of like there's some sort of contract or deal between the two of them, right? And I'm curious to know what that is. Now I've got to freaking, I guess, DM Narwhal or poke him and pressure him live on air to say, hey, like, how can I buy your book and then pressure you to put out book 2 so I can find out what happens next.
Did the climax culminate to this aspect that you're talking about, where you feel like there is some kind of part of the storyline that you want resolved at some point? It's not what happens next; it's just the next thing to happen. But there is still some resolution being sought after.
That's actually there's an important delineation between those two ideals, I think. Now that you mention it,
What is your take, Lit? Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Have Lit answer, please.
It was the story was heading somewhere.
Basically.
I think the story it's setting up something. So you don't really know what it's setting up because it's magic. So the logic is like you can't really follow the logic in a normal logical way, but you do know that something is being set up. So we had like they mentioned in the beginning. There's a stage 1, which is killing the pizza guy, and that creates like the big barrier around the hotel. And then he goes, okay, now for the next step, which will happen at 7:00, and that's kind of starts the orgy zombies occurring, and the guy, Mr. Columbo man from the beginning says, oh, she's planning to sacrifice all these people for something. We don't know what it is, but it is building up towards something. They cast this spell. These people are dying. People are turning to zombies, and it's building up to something, but we just don't know what yet. So we at the end we see like, oh, she summoned this demon thing, and so there is an arc. There is something it's building up to. We just don't know what it is, and we can't really. It's like the angel might know what it is, and Columbo Man might know what it is, but we don't, and they don't really explain it to us. So we're left like wondering what's going to happen. Why is she doing all this? And then at the end, we get to see, oh, it seems like she's doing all this to summon that demon guy, and then we don't know yet because it's like hinted at, because then it ends. But I think it is building up. There is an arc there. There's a mystery that keeps we get more and more into it. And we're wondering what's going on because things keep getting more and more extreme as we turn every page, which is very good. It's very good structure there.
Things do continually seem to ramp up.
It sounds like then the tone and the pace is probably a big part of this story as well, and carrying you.
The pace continually ramps up and speeds up. Yeah,
interesting. All right. Do we want to say anything else?
I can't really find any of the critiques. It's like it's really a pretty good story. It's pretty well done.
Yeah, yes. I think I said everything. I was grabbed from the beginning. I really tip my hat to these guys for pulling off that opening where they just swirl you up in a whirlwind of characters, and it's so much, but it works, and you actually can follow it, and you're interested, and it all makes sense. And then it's zany enough, it's weird enough. I really dig the 3D background and hand-drawn character thing. It reminds me of animations. Narwhal is always, he does great writing, so there's nothing there, that you would. And I will absolutely be looking forward to the second one. So.
Is the climax satisfying though? If it was appended, did it feel like it had the highest stakes of the book?
Well, yeah, because it keeps getting worse and worse and worse with the zombies, and then at the end it gets worse because there's a demon guy there now.
Yeah,
it can't have got any better.
Significantly worse than anything we've seen so far, and we've seen a lot of head chopping.
Yeah, so I think it's at the most the most dramatic height it has been in the entire book, when Demon Man appears, and pretty sure that's where it's going. That's what it feels like.
Okay, so it just keeps
For-
upping the ante every single time.
It might be the next one. I don't know. They might be trying to make sure he doesn't arrive. Like he might still be trapped, just outside of the realm, and they have to open some portal because they need. We didn't say this. That they lost a ring, and she needs that ring to finish the spell. So that's what they're looking for, the ring. Everyone's looking for the ring, either to stop her or to help her, and that's probably what's keeping the demon at bay at the moment.
Cool.
So I think for me, there did feel like, as much as I am genuinely invested in finding out what happens next, I want to see where the story goes. It did feel like there was something, I don't know what that thing is, that was missing to really make that cliffhanger moment feel a little bit more impactful. But overall, I have to give credit to the creative team, because this is both a genre and an art style that are not necessarily my bag by default. And yet I'm invested and interested to see what happens next. So that's a credit to the storytelling and the combination between the scripting and the art, to where even though neither the style or genre of storytelling nor the art style itself are necessarily something I would ordinarily gravitate towards, like if I were to find it on a shelf, having read it, I'm like, I kind of need to know what happens next.
I think
Please
that's
give me
fair,
book 2.
actually.
Give me book 2. I will back book 2.
Yeah, me too. They did such
Give me a
job.
ketchup pack so I can buy both, please.
They did such a good job at the start weaving all of those characters in. I think about halfway through, they could have started weaving in the big demon guy, even if it was just hinting, so that by the time he arrived, we were just like, oh my god, who is this going to be? What is this going to be? As opposed to, oh, look at that looks pretty bad,
Yeah.
All right. Very cool.
It did feel like he kind of appeared semi out of nowhere.
Do we want to do final thoughts, or do people feel like they already gave them?
I think we just did.
I feel like we just gave our final thoughts. Yeah, I
Um,
enjoyed the book and I want more. Like, despite
Yeah,
the
we're
fact
really
that
happy
the
with
art
it.
isn't necessarily my bag and the genre isn't necessarily my bag, I somehow want more of this book.
Maybe I could get your final thoughts.
And that was it. Overall, it's a really good book. It follows the structure it's supposed to. It goes through like the slasher tradition, where you get introduced to all these different characters. You don't really know them too well. They get like a little snippet, little flash shot of each of their personalities, what they do, who they are, and then boom, we roll right into the slasher stuff. Which in this case is a witch who causes a zombie orgy, and then people start dying. Things start getting crazy pretty quickly after that. We get to see different locations of where everything is taking place, and it's kind of like it's a method of, we begin, there's a bunch of different starting points, and then eventually, as the story goes on, these starting points begin to like tie together. They start dropping off, people die, and eventually all our wayward characters are kind of like grouping together to either survive, die, or eventually face off this menace or escape, hopefully. And the guy who comes in, who's like the rescuer, the huntsman, you could say, the huntsman to their little Red Riding Hood, and he goes in there to save them, but he needs their help because it's just him against these, because all he can do is possess dead bodies. He has to make sure he has a really good one. Unfortunately, it doesn't work out too well. So it gets you a good introduction to all these characters. It's going in the slasher tradition, the horror tradition of, here's a bunch of red shirts. Some of them we'll wait to see which ones make it to the end, if any make it to the end, and then things start going crazy. We get the supernatural stuff, and it goes boom, boom, boom. We ramp up the stakes, ramp up the tension. Here's some group. These guys are doing this. These guys are doing that. So it goes. There's a lot of rising action. haven't got to the climax yet. It's a lot of rising action, and it rises rapidly. And it's a long way to go. So it does everything correct as far as I've seen structurally. It gives you some good insight to the characters. It does everything pretty well.
Cool. Well, that's great to hear. Yeah, I probably should have been more probing about deficiencies, because it actually sounds like the book is a pretty big hit. It's a winner. So, all right.
I think we covered them.
Sure. Yeah, there was some. Absolutely. All right, everybody. Let me get the creators on, and we'll start probing them a little bit. So look forward to that. Always up for a good probing. We have Pear.
Wow.
Hey,
I chose the greatest time to come back.
Exactly. And his probing cohort is Jared.
my frequent collaborator.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, you sound good, Jared. By the way, your mic is good. He's
Good.
Yeah. So
Good. I was worried. My mic setup is a little wonky right now, so I wasn't sure if I was going to run into technical difficulties.
No, you sound
Yeah.
great, actually. So.
All right.
I can have a little opening statement. Thanks for everyone's commentary. That was great, and this panel's great. Everyone here is so talented too. So I love hearing what you guys got to say. And Andrew, nice to meet you. I don't know if we've been on the same stream yet or not, but
I don't think we have Narwhal, but props to you on the success of the book, and thank you for a read that made me want more.
thank you. Yeah, and to kind of fit with the things you guys liked and the critiques, me and Jared had some challenges. Some of them we didn't realize until the book was like almost like done, where we realized we had painted ourselves into a corner in a couple ways where it was designed to just be one story, but it's going to be 240 pages, but we're not going to do that. So like we have to release it in 120. So how do we do that? And within any structure, a lot of times the midway point does kind of work for that. Like I always think of Kill Bill. That's actually what Tarantino did. He just
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I think about too. Like it's gonna be one story, but you have to cut it up. There is a point in there where it's about the halfway point or like a third of the way there, something that it's a really good place to cut it off for the next one.
Yeah. So that was kind of the idea. We're like, we'll just do that. And kind of, so that's what we did. We sent it then to get some initial feedback. And you guys are reading a version after quite a bit of reworking. After that feedback, there was some kind of negative aspects of that cutting off because we didn't have the demon scene. It just ended without the big demon, just ended. And that was the editor, Blake Worrell. He got kind of mad at me in the emails. He's like, "This is not a satisfying. I feel kind of ripped off, to be honest, or whatever." And I was like, "Jared, we gotta come. We gotta fix this. What do we even do?"
I got to give you props, Narwhal, as a creative, for taking feedback like that and being like, "Hey," from your editor, and saying, like, there really needs to be some. If you're gonna leave people on a cliffhanger, you need to give them a cliffhanger that makes them really, really want to get that next part.
Yeah,
right?
It kind of has to feel like a full meal, even if it doesn't complete the story.
Yeah.
And
I was not unsatisfied at all.
Mhm.
I was a little surprised. That's all.
Yeah.
yeah,
Because I'm not unlike Andrew. I was reading it in PDF full screen, so I had no indication of how many pages I had left. And I was just sort of clicking down. And and then it was there. But it was like I said, it was the right spot to chop it, because it's sort of everyone knows what their task is now. Everyone knows what they need to do. They're trying to get this ring. They're in their groups, and now it's just like a slight eye of the storm, if you will. So that was a pretty good time to end it.
It's funny that you and I read it so differently in that respect. Like, you had it in full screen, you were just going page. Like, I had it blown up to look at like each panel, and maybe my eyesight is worse. These are not actually corrected. These are just blue light filter. Maybe my eyesight's worse than I think it is. But I was like just trying to like really hone in on each panel. And I did just at some point noticed the page count that I had left. And I was like, oh, this story is not wrapping up here. There's a next part.
yeah.
I'm glad that you listened to your editor on adding that scene at the end with the demon, because I would have felt ripped off. And I would prefer to feel like a little jarred, like I did, like, whoa, okay, where did that come from? So what happens now? Rather than like, why are we ending here?
Yeah. Yeah. And like, yeah, with it being that kind of half the story, the other thing that kind of played into some issues is some of the feedback that we went back to the drawing board kind of quickly with too, is the feedback people were saying, kind of what you guys are still kind of mentioned, is that there's no main character, not a super connection with any of these characters. But that was even what we went and did the thing where we made sure everyone had at least one thing. Like the Connie is, I actually know their names, whatever. Like it's funny, me and Jared know the whole story.
You
and
guys
we've-
describe them
Well,
by
you
what they
did
are.
kind of have a
Yeah,
hand in
yeah,
the story
yeah.
creation. I would hope that you would.
Yeah. So she's the tennis player girl.
Yeah.
And it starts with her listening to a message from her dad, and her dad's putting a lot of pressure on her. Like we added that. So we made sure everyone has their little thing, their little hook, so we can at least have that. And then we kind of, because we went in knowing like it's going to be an ensemble, there's not going to be a main character. But then if you go the whole story, they actually all have little arcs, and it's kind of fun. So we're looking forward to that. But you don't even get that satisfaction in part one. And like that's another one where like I'm not even sure how, like you could kind of from the beginning design it as two stories that like a single and a sequel. But we didn't we did it part one and part two, and it's just kind of a choice, I guess. But that's kind of the way we did it. So these are ways that we kind of. I told Jared, I was like, I think we might just have to live with that. Like it's almost like a realization, like, oh yeah, we like the characters, but we know what's going to happen to them, and we've been working with them or whatever. Other people aren't making those connections yet, except with like Salome and Adrian are kind of like the main.
Well,
conflict.
I like the characters. I get a sense that there are all these different personalities and their own motivations and all that sort of stuff. It's just that you don't really get time to, you don't get the time in this because it's so fast paced to sort of slow down and really get to know them to the point where you remember their name. You're constantly on the move, but it is, I like them so because I'm entertained by it all. And I do, at this point, the group that's left actually would feel like, oh no, he got his head chopped off, at this point. Whereas at the start, I'm like, yeah, whatever, chop heads off. Who cares?
I don't know. I worked retail for far too long to not want that one jerk off to get his head.
Yeah,
chopped
I
off.
want to see if he gets his redemption. If he
Oh, see, yeah,
figure
If
that's
out. I
that
don't know.
happens and it's
I don't know
done
where you're
well, I will be like,
that's funny.
wow.
Yeah. Yeah, there is. That's like each of those is a horror trope, and one of the ones
Yeah.
is it's the guy you want to die, but he keeps not dying, and you're like,
Yeah.
ah.
He's probably gonna become a hero or something.
Yeah, like
And-
Jamie.
It's his own
in,
spin-off.
And
in
hey,
Game
if
of
you can
Thrones.
pull that off, even more power to you, because that's correct subversion of expectations. Because base default expectations for me would be like, I really don't like this guy right from Jump Street. I want to see him get his. I want to see some just desserts doled out here, and I want to see him get his in like the most gruesome way possible, because that's general, slasher horror trope. But if you can write in an arc that such that like makes me genuinely wish that he does live instead of what my normal emotional default would be, that's nothing but good writing,
Well,
Yeah.
Maybe he's like a asshole with a heart of gold or something.
right?
Yeah,
That's nothing but
no
good or
spoilers.
not even asshole with a heart of gold, just like he's an asshole but he develops a
Yeah.
good heart.
And his opening scene where he's yelling at the front desk agent. I was
Yeah.
a front desk agent in my 20s before the Fred Meyer Deli, my legendary origin lore. I worked at a hotel.
Fred Meyer was the ish when I lived in Washington.
Yeah. But yeah, I worked at the hotel, and that exact thing happened to me. And the manager even did it all the same way. She gave him a room that had already been sold, like kicking the can down the road.
Yeah.
But you have to deal with it later, but at least we'll get rid of this guy.
Right,
And,
one problem at a time.
Yeah. And so that guy, whatever, that's some authentic experience. Oh, and I was glad Bancroft mentioned the beginning, because that's kind of the part that I'm kind of proud of, that part of like I don't know, like how what we wanted to do is like we want to have like the whirlwind opening kind of feeling sort of cinematic. I picture it as a movie, like cutting around the
100%.
room,
Yeah, I
meeting
got that
everyone.
feeling. Like I
Mhm.
was like, oh, I've seen this movie before, but I'm watching. It's a new story. It's like, yeah, this really did feel like that, and I think you absolutely nailed it. I did. I could follow everything. I was interested in everything, and it was all natural. That's very important. It felt like I was in the middle of a really busy day at a hotel lobby. So no, you guys really nailed that part.
Yeah,
Having been somebody who worked not service industry or in hotel stuff, but having worked retail for over a decade and a half in management specifically, I immediately understood what some of those characters were feeling.
nice.
In some of those opening pages, I was like, I feel for you. I am so sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that we yeah, so there's a mini comic that got released with the book too. And that's another thing where it's like it almost cuz I want every mini comic to just be a fun addition. And we did it and we really liked it and we're like this is almost like not a deleted scene, like this almost should be in the comic. So when we do a collect edition we will probably print the mini comic cuz we're doing there'll be two and one I can just tell you it's a scene about
So like a
Salome.
director's cut.
Yeah, it's a scene with Salome 700 years ago when she's a little girl, and that does like answer
700
quite a
years
bit.
ago. I think you just gave us a spoiler.
Yeah, I mean the mini comic kind of answers a lot of what you might be like. Oh, are they going to answer it in part two? It's like no, the mini comic kind of gives.
That's
it.
like
why we're
what
oh,
Kenneth Rogerboard did with Groken. He had two mini comics that were like Rosetta Stones for Groken. So I read Groken
Still
1
need to
and
read
2,
Groken.
and I couldn't make heads or tails of all the different characters because I just didn't have this grounding. And then I realized I didn't even see this because they were slipped in behind the backing boards of one of my variant covers that I didn't open. So I was like, what's this? And I read them and it was like everything got unlocked. And then I reread them like, oh my God, it all makes sense. It's crazy.
that's
It's,
funny.
yeah.
That people gave me that feedback with Earthbound a little bit in the hardcover edition. You open it and it had a flap that folds around, so I had to write copy for the inner flaps, and I wrote kind of a summary of the story kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that teases but no spoilers. And a couple people were like, you need to put that thing like in the front of the book so that people like know what's happening.
This context is kind of semi super essential.
Yeah, yeah.
I understand that.
Well, did you guys want to talk a little bit about what the back and forth collaborative process was like between Pear and Jared?
Yeah.
Jared,
Yeah.
Yes.
did you
Yeah,
wanna
Jared,
jump
you
in?
go.
Sure. I mean, is there like, what questions did you have about, what about whatever part of the process?
Well, first
How
off,
do you-
for us, we were like, I don't know if you listened to the start. We didn't even realize it wasn't Narwhal on the arts. You guys have a quite similar-ish style. I'm sure if you put them side by side, that we would see lots of differences. But just
On the surface level,
yeah. So
we did see heavy similarities enough to where my ignorant butt was like, "Oh yeah, Narwhal wrote and drew this thing," right?
was that like that's obviously something that just happened by itself, and then you guys are sort of drawn to each other. Was that is there anything you can illuminate in terms of working together and having such a similar style? And because you guys I think I read Narwhal that you did the backgrounds.
Yeah, and we kind of both did the backgrounds too.
Okay.
And part of the similarity is like the fact we're doing 3D backgrounds with characters over the top. Because Jared has other ways that he'll draw. But Jared, I'll let you talk because I keep talking.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, at the very start, when I first started doing like test pages for the book, there was a little bit of a style shift to where it like I think for the beginning I tried going like I didn't go super realistic, because at the very beginning Narwhal wanted me to do something more in my style, something more cartoony, and at the beginning, I did try and do something, like I said, something a little bit more anatomically correct and such. It wasn't working as well as we wanted. So, and I was also doing thumbnailing for most, like, because we did back and forth on thumbnails and layouts, and he made a comment saying that he really wanted to see, like, because I do my thumbnails really cartoony, and he really wanted to see more of that cartoony style, like, in the final artwork. So I started to do more of that, and so yeah, there's definitely a lot of and I take a lot of Narwhal's feedback, as far as art direction and such. So there's definitely a lot of his input in regards to, like, certain decisions, and you know and like, also he was I'm also, like, more or less work for hire for the book. So it's I listen to his input, and I work according to his instruction.
Whose idea was the whole concept? Did Narwhal come to you and say, like, I worked at this hotel and I want to write a story about killing everybody that I had to work with, and then you guys just kind of went from there? Like, how did that all come together?
I think
Yeah.
kind of like that.
Yeah. I mean, because we've shared ideas back and forth before. And he mentioned an idea he had for, like, it was kind of a stub of what the hotel story script would have been. Originally, it would have focused more on a team of, like, a basketball team that were traveling and were staying at a hotel. And, well, like, the night that they're staying, like, there's a bunch of supernatural stuff going on. I don't remember if the witch was involved at that point yet or not. And this was after we did, like, a small collaborative 20-page comic on something, and that 20-page comic wasn't really coming up as well as we were hoping. So
And that was a pixel comic, because Jared's really good at pixel art too, like Super Nintendo style pixels. We did a pixel style RPG of Franz Kafka's The Trial, and we did all of chapter 1. And it's like really fun, but yeah, like nobody cared, and we didn't even care really, so we kind of abandoned that.
yeah, and so, like, we were kind of scrambling to figure out another thing that we could work on, because we've been wanting to do a big time collaboration for a while, but the hotel script was, like, one of two ideas that we were possibly going to work on. The other one, if I remember correctly, was more of a Legend of Zelda spoof. And
Oh yeah, we did some back and forth with that too. Yeah.
I'll do that one. It sounds like it'd be pretty funny.
Yeah.
That's only one of my
Zelda stuff
all-time
is
favorite
good.
video game franchises.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty
Give us a pitch for it. What would you do that?
I kind of forget. Is the kid gets sent on the quest and blah blah blah. We were trying to think of, like, what do you embrace that's like a total cliche, and what do you, like, subvert, and we were messing with that kind of stuff.
yeah, and I remember, like, he had asked me, like, which one I wanted to work on, because I got the feeling he with me, he wanted to do the Zelda one. And like, when I heard the two ideas, like I said, I want to do the hotel one.
Nice. Yeah, and I remember with the collaboration, I think we kind of did it a lot of times where we would have meetings, and then I would write up kind of like the minutes on the meetings of summarizing what we had, like, powwowed about what's going to happen next. I email that to Jared. Then there's kind of a loose outline. Then he writes the initial draft, and then I would edit the draft and change anything I wanted to change. And that way we got a lot of Jared's flavor in the writing, because he writes kind of fun, authentic details with dialogue, and that's a little different than mine. But I'd say it's like, you could say it's like quirky, and my style can be considered quirky too. But so then we did embrace the quirkiness as much as we could,
One thing I could
Yeah.
suggest is, like, there's this book called, I think, How to Kill a Demon King or Demon Lord in, like, 12 Easy Steps, something like that. It's a pretty good book, but it does also do a lot of spoof things from Legend of Zelda. Like, The main character is a bag mage. Like that's her whole thing. And she has magic bags, but she like levels them up really, really well. So like when she goes to the water temple, she just like instead of having to swim around the water temple, she just puts all the water in her bags. And they have to
Yeah,
find
that's
a
funny.
link and stuff like that. So they do have a lot of like parallels in that story. So you might want to like you want to read that one just to see maybe get some ideas or something for the Zelda.
Oh yeah, yeah. And with so this is true with almost every book I've worked on. There has to be you might call it a magic system, but it's just one thing, and that thing can be explored in like 20 different ways. And then I'm like, oh, I want to do that. So like in Earthbound, it's the R types. It's like guns that you shoot someone and they have to join your team, like brainwashing guns or whatever. And you hear that you're like, oh, you could like shoot the president of the United States, then you could run the U.S. That's kind of fun. Or you could shoot the
With an
president's
imaginary
wife.
Minecraft gun, YouTube. With an imaginary Minecraft.
Yeah, with the R
Very,
type.
In Minecraft.
Yes.
Yeah.
dicey topic
Well,
at the moment.
I mean, but are you forging it with diamond or are you forging it with iron? Like,
Yeah,
let's be
don't
real
clip
here.
that because I'm talking about the R type. It's non-lethal. It's a little. It's in the comic. But
It's
yeah,
a fake president.
yeah.
Oh,
And
wait, we have one now.
yeah. But yeah, so with Hotel Story, it was the idea of Adrian being able to possess dead bodies, and you're like, oh, so many funny things we could do. And that was kind of the main thing, I think, was that basically. But
Yeah, that was probably the most fun element of the whole story was Adrian just like going between the different bodies and getting his head chopped off and then being able to move his body because you could see it and all that sort of stuff. It was good.
That was actually, I think, if you guys caught the first half of the show, Adrian was one of those characters that, despite it feeling like the story was very much not character focused, character driven, Adrian was one of those characters I think most of us latched onto as, like, at the very least interesting, and we wanted to learn more, because there was some really cool stuff kind of going on there. And I did really enjoy that bit where there was this whole kind of like back and forth conflict going on, and he was hidden underneath the bowl or whatever, but like prior to that, when he was able to see what was going on, he was still able to fight without a head when he was in control of the one body, with the big dude, big burly guy. That was fun. That was super clever. Like, that was super clever. I cannot emphasize enough how much, despite, like, I don't know how much of the first half of the show you guys caught, how the art style and the genre itself aren't normally my cup of tea, but how interested I was in what was going on despite that. And that's just a credit to quality, because quality can sometimes supersede general preference. If something is of enough quality, it doesn't matter if it's a genre that I would normally be drawn to by default, or if it's an art style that I would normally be drawn to by default. If the quality of the storytelling is there, and the quality of the art is there, I just not only want but need to know what happens next, and I'm invested in what's going on the page. And you guys really pulled that off.
thanks.
I need
you.
to give credit where credit's due. Like, you guys really pulled that off. I'm very particular when it comes to genres. I'm very particular when it comes to art styles. And when's book 2?
We're working on it like now, and I think we might be halfway through it, so it'll be like early next year.
And
mid-next year.
can I still get my hands on book 1 via PayPal or something?
I think we
in
can.
print.
Yeah. I'm glad that you got converted or whatever. That's one cool thing about comics is it's kind of like the sum can be greater than the parts or whatever, and
Exactly.
that's kind of what we try to do for sure.
When you try to write in the, I forget the way Bancroft put it, but like the expansive style where there's a lot of breathing room in the books and then the page count. And then everything moves very quickly. Is that you're trying to lean into a more of a manga flavor with the storytelling, or do you feel like that just opens up a lot more pacing opportunities and tension doing things that way?
So with this one, I kind of think of it as like cinematic, but with an asterisk, whereas cinematic is such a loaded term now, and it has, especially in comics, it's like there's the 2000 definition when everyone was like trying to get their books made into movies.
Yeah.
They loved widescreen panels, like, and I don't even really think of that as super cinematic. And I kind of think of cinematic more as like it is like you know, a little more storyboardy kind of, and it's a little bit more like if you read the book, it might feel like watching a movie, and that's definitely like something I've always tried to do. And now I'm thinking about like ways to try other stuff. But I do. Then this book is kind of like that, so it's like, you know, it could be high-ish panels per page, and kind of high page count, but you're still reading it and turning the page pretty fast. Because it's funny, it's like in some ways counterintuitive. You'd be like, wait, like Bancroft was saying, decompressed. And yeah, you're like, so it's 120 pages where like only half the story happens. So
Yeah.
you would think like, wait, does that mean it's slow? And you're like, no, it's like fast. I don't know.
No, it just means there's a lot there.
Yeah,
There's a lot
it gets
to
a
go
lot
through.
of it gets filled, like Litdev was saying too, cutting between the scenes, and a lot of it gets filled because, which is part of the fun I had, is like I remember thinking like, oh, this is going to be a 240 page comic that takes place over like 6 hours on one night, and that's kind of like rare. You know, I can't think of too many other comics that have done that. So we're trying to
Just
zoom
that
into
premise infers pretty quick pace.
Yeah. So we're just thinking of every detail we can, and if we think of something fun, we're going to put it in the comic. It's like, yeah, that'll add an extra page or two to get like an extra beat in the action where something kind of funny happens, but we were just going for as many as possible, kind of. And then getting those to be readable is a challenge in itself, and we got most of them, but it is something it's like kind of hard to do. I don't know.
Yeah, Jared, credit to you. Like I've said this already prior to you and Narwhal jumping in. I'll say it because I'm not ashamed of saying it to somebody's face. The art style is not generally my bag, but you do such a good job of showcasing movement in each panel and emotion on such otherwise simplistic designs. Like it's almost like this crazy dichotomy between the level of emotion and movement that you manage to showcase in otherwise simplistic designs that was super impressive and kept me engaged and was like, wow, like there's actually a lot going on right now in this panel that you wouldn't normally expect based on like what was actually being seen there. And I was incredibly impressed with that. I have to I don't have a hat right now. I rarely wear hats, but I will tip my non-existent hat to you for how much
Tip your
movement-
pompadour.
Yeah, there we go. I'll do that. There we go. I'll tip that to you for the expressiveness and the movement that you showcased panel to panel for all of these different characters, for just a huge cast too, that really kept that pace of the story going at not necessarily a breakneck pace, but at a pace that was like, wow, there's like a lot happening over a very short period of time here. Like, you did a great job with that. A really great job with that.
Thank you.
Narwhal, can I hit you up now about your other collaborations? Because I know people are on pins and needles waiting.
Yeah,
to
the only thing about that is it's funny because I have been told that we're still kind of not really going to talk about it till mid-December is the story.
Okay.
It's fun though. Yeah.
Hey, listen, and I'll be the first to say NDAs are NDAs.
Let's talk about a hypothetical collaboration since you do so many.
Yeah.
If you were to do a collaboration with a big time writer, what would you do?
Yeah.
That's funny. No, you know, I worked with Chuck Dixon on like a 12-page or maybe it's 10-page short story that's in the new Jawbreakers, so that'll be out pretty soon.
If you were to do a collaboration with the writer of, say, Kick-Ass or something like that.
Oh yeah, it's random.
Wow, let's just be like super subtle, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, what?
Good
Give us a wish list at least. Like,
Yeah.
what is your desire?
Hey, say what you wouldn't do, and then we'll have to.
Oh yeah, let's do that.
Well, it wasn't something that I thought was going to happen, so it took me kind of by surprise, and yes, which is cool, and I appreciate it. I'll definitely be able to tell you guys more. It's been an interesting time, and I'm really looking forward to like people seeing more, and like all that kind of stuff. But yeah,
You're very
it should be
excited?
next summer. I'm pretty sure is like when
Wow.
it'll be.
I will say, knowing what very little I do know, there's immense talent present that makes me curious and looking forward to, with great anticipation, to the end result.
Yeah, thank you.
Are you essentially approaching it the same way you do with Jared, where there is a storytelling back and forth dynamic?
Yeah, that's something that's fun, and I can tell you more a little later. Sorry.
Okay. Did you call your mom and like gush over the phone, like, "Mom, I'm working with this amazing guy"?
I kind of did do a little bit of that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
No,
Whole family knows.
I
They're all
can
proud
I
of you.
can vibe with that.
Yeah.
I can totally vibe with that.
All your old enemies are super jealous and like, curse that narwhal.
Everyone
Yeah.
back at
Narwhal doesn't have enemies. Narwhal's too well liked.
Yeah.
Yeah, the deli.
Who doesn't like Narwhal?
I'll go back
Let me
to the
know.
deli and throw the book down to baby.
Give me names. Give me names.
That
Yeah, I
guy
can't
could not
remember.
put mustard on a sandwich to save his life.
Butcher
The bo-
Fred. All right.
We'll
boss lady-
sort this out right now.
Yeah, no. The boss at the deli, her name was Jamie, and she wouldn't let me park my scooter in the back
free.
area of the deli.
Jamie,
And
They got it. They
heartless
actually got
wench.
it.
Sounds like an
Yeah.
absolute twat. We'll sort that out real quick.
Yeah. So she,
In Minecraft.
In my grave.
I hit her with a mind-changing ray from one
Right.
of Narwhal's books.
yeah,
No, I'll just pull up God mode in Minecraft and institute like dropping all of the possible enemy spawns right over her general vicinity.
What about other collaborations you might be involved in?
well, me and Jared, like I said, the frequent collaborator. So we're working on Hotel Story 2, and then we're writing a new one right now that we're both pumped on, and same kind of process, just back and forth meetings, and then he takes a pass, I take a pass, and then Jared's working on his own solo stuff that is awesome. But I guess he can't go full steam on that until we finish Hotel Story. But everyone should kind of keep that in mind. That he has like some big books coming out that are great that I'm really excited about. And yeah, other than that, then I have I have Grand Prix 3 and yeah, this thing and Hotel Story and Cerberus 2 is the other one I'm really looking forward to.
Here's a question that I have, and this is something that stems from both as a creative themselves as well as somebody who interacts with creatives on a daily basis. And this is something that has always hyper interested me. What's it like having a specific person? Because in a lot of cases, especially when it comes to things like comic books, you'll have artists and art and writing teams that'll cycle through super frequently, right? Like you'll have in the mainstream, for example, you'll have typically they'll do your standard 22 to 24 6-part arc for a given story, and sometimes you'll have art teams change just within 6 issues, right? What's it like to have a specific person that you enjoy collaborating with, that you feel like you vibe with on a creative level, like on a
Yeah.
really, really strong level too? Because you don't see it that frequently, certainly in the mainstream. And I say this as somebody who's been reading comics since I was like yay tall. We don't see that very often. And I have the privilege and blessing of seeing teams like, say, Chuck Dixon and Joe Bennett over at the Rippaverse and a couple of other teams similar. What's that like?
Well,
What can you tell us about that collaboration?
yeah, I'm curious what Jared will say too, but I'll say really quick. Jared is a little bit of what do they call it? A utility man or a man of many talents or whatever.
Mhm. Yeah.
So like Jared is coloring Cerberus, you know, so he's coloring one of my books. We're co-writing one. He's drawing one. So like that's the way I enjoy the relationship, is that it's kind of different facets and different angles that you can approach it from.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I don't know, Jared, what do you think?
Um, so I would say, as far as collaboration, like I'm still fairly new to the comic game, so like a lot of this collaboration experience is still pretty fresh to me, and I'm pretty like I like I I feel like I need to be pretty flexible. Like it's I found it's been good for me to be flexible with like a lot of different things, like whether that be either rewriting or redrawing certain pages for either for storytelling purposes or just like a quality pass. And just making just because it's not it's not about like, well, yeah, it's, I mean, it's about making as high quality of a product as you can for that other people, that since people are buying the book, you want to make sure that one is that the idea you're trying to communicate is there, and that it's that people are getting their money's worth. And
Yeah.
also at the same time, like you also don't want to bottleneck the process either. You gotta keep, you can't spend too much time on like one page or one one specific like drawing that's that's holding you back from getting the rest of getting everything else done. So there's a bit of a sort of a detachment from your own uh not emotion, but just like you're like kind of a detachment from your own hangups. And I think that's
Sure.
been a good thing for me to to come to grips with, like in the collaboration process.
Have you noticed, because you guys have already hinted at working on the next part of this story for Helltale Story, have you noticed a increase in like the cohesiveness in the collaboration from parts 1 to part 2? Because I can, as the creative manager over the Rippaverse, I can say like with certainty, like looking at the collaboration between somebody like Chuck Dixon and Joe Bennett on something like Alpha Core #1, and then looking at just the growth between their collaboration to the Horsemen, and then to even their next projects beyond that. Like it's like with, I come from a background where like I did sports throughout my younger years, and so the longer you work with a team, the more cohesive you become, right? And the more you understand each other, the better you work with each other. And the same thing applies to a creative team, in my experience, where like the longer you work with each other, the more often you work with each other, kind of the more cohesive you are, and like the better you can pull out of each other. And sometimes you wind up drawing things out of each other that you didn't even expect. Have you seen that kind of growth, do you think, between parts 1 for Hotel Story and this next section that y'all are working on?
Yeah, Jared, you go and then I'll go if you have anything you want to say.
Um, I mean, I think I like, as far as like the stuff we're working on currently, as like with part 2 and the new script that we're doing. I don't like, I feel more like I definitely feel less what's the like I don't like I'm
Are you like less you're less encumbered?
right, unencumbered, uninhibited with like certain, like either giving like I'm able to speak a little bit more of like more, because I know because I listen to a lot of Pear's ideas, and like like with any input that he has, like, because one, I know that he has you know like a lot more years of experience with writing and with with the comic format than I do. You know, like even going into the first the first collaborations, you know, like I have that in mind. So like, and like even with that, you know, with that, like I know he's you know, he's also willing to like take in any feedback that I might have. And I think for like a few other scripts he's sent some like preliminary scripts and outlines to me, and like I've given some feedback, and like I know like on some of them I know he's gone as far as like rewriting the whole draft to you know and yeah and I think I can yeah
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I value Jared's input for sure, and we've got more comfortable with that back and forth of being able with like less ego, which I remember from the beginning. I've always thought that is like, I definitely don't want to, because it almost makes no sense if you ask someone to collaborate with you and then they make a suggestion and you go like, no, we're doing my idea because I like mine better.
Yeah.
So it's from the beginning, it has been good, but it gets more smooth. And then the way that we work together really well, I've noticed too lately, I was telling Jared, is like, Jared's really good at identifying problems and I'm good at solving them. So that's sometimes how our like meetings go.
That's a really good combination, honestly.
Yeah.
That's a really good combination. There are a lot of creative teams that don't get half that far.
Yeah, and the art style is almost in some ways designed to work with that, where it's kind of like more reworking as we're going than I think a lot. If you compared it to other ways that people work, we do like more of that, and some of that can get almost into like a little bit in the meeting where it gets like improvisational, and I'll know like that we're on the right track if Jared kind of like, because he'll never laugh, but he'll like go, huh. And then I'm like, oh, I got a reaction out of him. Like we're onto something.
You get a
got a reaction out of the otherwise stoic individual.
Yeah,
cool. We're on the right path. This is the way.
Get him a soundboard, and you can like play, you know, different audio files of like
I love it.
expressions.
I love
it.
Yeah.
That's great.
You want to talk
Like-
about the? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Like Stephen Hawking.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that'd be cool. I need to get one of those. I'm the internet Stephen Hawking's, so be awesome to have one. You want to talk a little bit about the Jawbreakers collab? What's coming out of that? You mentioned Chuck Dixon.
Yeah. So there's a little short comic that we did that it was pretty fun. It was me, Richard, and Chuck kind of all powwowing via email, and then I just went off and drew it. And it's just like an 9 page short comic that I think is pretty fun. I think everyone's kind of enjoys it. So people hopefully will like that when it comes out. It's called Salt and Sugar. It's about two punk bitches robbing a bank, kind of.
Okay.
And
Salty.
Yeah.
All right.
And or biatches, I should say. I guess.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
actually more
You have
accurate.
to use the correct vernacular there. So.
Yeah. And then we are. I think next year there's a 20-page one shot that's in the Jawbreakers universe that I'm gonna draw. This is the plan, and I'm super stoked and really excited for that.
Congratulations!
I haven't talked to Richard in like a couple months, so I'm always nervous that he'll be like, "Oh yeah, I forgot. We can't do that." But I think we're doing that. Yeah. So. His is less formal. Working with him is less formal than other stuff. There's no NDAs or anything. So.
I heard there's like limited communication. He just kind of tells you what he wants done, and you go with that, and that's kind of the back and forth.
I've thought sometimes it's like texting, but it's email. So it'll be like 5 one-sentence emails
Oh my gosh.
in a thread.
On a personal level, that would drive my OCD absolutely insane and up the wall.
Yeah.
If you're sending me an email, it needs to be a length such as that justifies it being an email as opposed to you just texting or DMing me. But maybe that's just a personal thing. But sincere congratulations to you for that kind of collaboration, and that's a big deal. That's no small matter. And maybe we'll have to I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe we'll have to get you
I
over
want to
here.
work for the Rippaverse at some point. So
I don't know. Maybe we'll have to make something happen.
Yeah, that'd be sweet.
Narwhal is a collaborator, so that's where his forte lies.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying. I'm just saying.
He also respects NDAs a little too much. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, no. See, now you just hard sold them to me. Like,
Yeah,
really.
see, that's a good thing.
It's literally in the name.
I ruined my
Right.
interview.
Yeah. The secret keeper. That's funny.
Oh well. Well, that's great. Yeah, I mean, working with Chuck too to be able to do something that's got to be amazing. Do you get a lot of feedback from him too? Is there a mentorship aspect when you work with somebody like Chuck? You know, a big name creator. That
With Chuck, it was so informal, and I felt with, and even in like the pen pal stages with anyone else, it's like I'm always pretty nervous. And I say to myself, "Don't be needy, don't be needy, don't be needy, don't be needy." But it'll break through a little bit here and there, but not so much with Chuck. But I fantasize about it. But the thing I do too is I definitely like do the osmosis thing where I just like I'll read some of their books. So I'm working with them, reading their book and emailing with them. And then anything they say, I'll like nitpick every little thing they say to try and like, find extra meaning in it, find the esoteric meaning.
That's a great way to approach anything guys like Chuck or Mike say, because they might not be particularly direct about direction or instruction. But, I mean, we're all comic book guys. They've been around for so long and had so much success and contributed at such a high level to comic book culture that it's hard to not look at their body of work and not take something away from it. So like when they talk on the industry or they talk about the process, it's like, pay the heck attention. They're saying something that is worth taking in on some level, right?
I agree. Yeah, and Baron, he'll just drop wisdom nuggets. Chuck has a whole YouTube channel, and I think Chuck did like an article. It might have been a long time ago now, but it's like the 20 points to do a comic or whatever. And I read it. I forget some of it now, but I remember thinking it's great. It's funny because some of them you're like, oh, that seems obvious, but it's like, no, do them all in 20 pages or 22 pages.
Yeah.
See if you can do that. Like, it's hard.
it's great.
It's a great way to sort out pacing and structure. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to quickly comment that it's great working with the established guys, the big names, because you get that mentorship. But like the up and coming guys, the raw talents like Bancroft and Literature Dev and clearly Jared. These guys have like creative blue balls and they're just ready to burst. And so like
That's an image. Okay,
There you go.
glad I have
Like
one.
15-year-old
It works.
schoolboy.
This is why I drink.
that's why we all drink.
Gotta write sometimes, or else it just explodes.
Exactly. Yeah. Like you want to collab with those guys because like the ideas are just all pent up and they're ready to impregnate the audience with
So
Yeah.
visceral
With
your
with the chest
wording
burster.
there.
Yeah.
That's
Don't wanna-
that's
don't want
outstanding.
to waste any of those in the tissue. Just get them out there.
No, why would you want to waste those? Yeah,
Yeah. So that's great in this space. You have access. It's an orgy of creative talents.
you're so
I'm just
specific
gonna
with your
keep going with this.
vernacular. Like, why? This is why are we here?
You can't stop me.
Well, Red's painting a picture of his inner psyche at the moment.
Pulsating talents. Over here.
That's I don't plan on getting that picture framed. Yeah.
Yeah, the paint would run. But it just that's where the creative opportunities also you got to look for those. So
Good magnum talents.
yeah.
Why are you making it worse? No, I know you. I've known you for years. Why am I surprised? I'm not. It's fine.
I'd love to see collaborations with Narwhal and Bancroft and Literature Devil at some point too.
I think the beauty of the indie space in general is the potential for collaborations. Whether that's one-offs, whether that's ongoings, no matter what it is, that there's a beauty in the genuinely independent sphere when it comes to comic book creation, where the permutations that you have available to you are nigh infinite, right? Like you have so many talented people, whether it's on the writing side, whether it's on the art side. I mean, you got guys like Jared and you got guys like Narwhal who, there's both that you have available to you. There's so many raw talented people
A
we
turgid
have.
monolith of talent.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. And it's anybody who is in the independent space when it comes to comic book creation should see that as a blessing and should see that as an opportunity, because there's so many people. There's no limit to the genres and the art styles and things that you can take advantage of. There's always going to be a story that can be told, and we have so many talented people in this space. Like, just again, I hate to circle back to it for the umpteenth time, but this genre and the art style that pertain to Hotel Story is not my usual bag. And yet I finished it and I was like, so where's part 2? Because I want to know what happens. I was genuinely invested in the story, and the art was, even though it wasn't my normal default, was incredibly interesting and super expressive, and the movement that can be shown on the panel with that kind of a style is so cool. I just needed to know what was next. Yeah, Jared, you did a fantastic job with that. Again, I'm a guy like where my top guys are usually like Michael Turner and Brett Booth and guys like I guess for lack of a better term, you're run of the mill like 90s image guys for the most part. But like, you did such a great job with telling the story on the panel with your style, and that there was incredible movement. I've never seen such expressiveness and movement shown with such a minimalistic style, to where I was genuinely shocked by said expressiveness and motion showed by that style. I don't know how else to say it. It's not my usual bag, but I was looking at it. I was like, what happens next? What happens next? Oh, wow. Why is that so expressive? How does it look like there's so much movement happening on the panel with such a simplistic style otherwise? Like, it was like a freaking brain fart. Like, I was there was a disconnect, a synapse misfire. You did a really fantastic job.
Yeah, the fact that the art kind of gave you that experience is kind of fun. That's something comics can do too, is like it can kind of have art that grows on you.
Yeah.
And that's fun, I think. Like, so yeah, so people, if anyone in the chat, even if you've thought similar things, like with my style or Jared's, being like, everyone says the writing's good, but I don't like the art. I have to like both. It's like, you can give it a chance, is what I would recommend.
Give it a chance. Genuinely give it a chance. I will back that up 1000%, because I am that guy. I said that at the top of the show. The art style isn't my normal bag, but I was just kind of drawn in, for lack of a better term, like by a combination of, because for me it has to be both. There has to be some sort of cohesiveness between the story and the art. And you guys, you're a really fantastic collaborative team, to where I needed part 2. So hurry the heck up and finish part 2 so I can read it.
I actually watched an interview with I'll drop a name that nobody's hinted at all in this stream thus far. Mark Miller, he talked with Gary of Nerdrotic and and they talked specifically about like the comic industry and where it's been, where it's going, where it currently stands. And one of the issues they mentioned was the fact that it's just dated. It's just dated. You don't even have to talk about the propaganda aspects or any of the other issues with it. He wanted this generation to have its own new brand of stories, superheroes, storylines, comics. And that all has to come from new creative voices that get elevated and get exposure and get the opportunity to make tomorrow's Batman or tomorrow's Superman. because those are characters of their time, and yeah, we love them. They're great. But what about something current? What about something now? And what about something for the future? So definitely need to tap these creative voices while they're fresh, young, and fertile.
Yeah, it happens. Yeah, fertile. It happens naturally. And
What is
but
this stream?
What?
How do we
I don't know
keep
what you're
going here?
I don't know what you're reading into this. Get your
No,
What
like-
I'm reading into this. Okay, no, I can just read.
For the throbbing talent that awaits it.
Wow,
It's
thanks
true.
for making it worse, Lit.
thrusting
Good
it
job.
into the audience's minds.
All right, there it
Throbbing,
is.
potent talent.
Wow.
comics kind of had the reputation, I think, of like with the youthful aspect of almost like a punk kind of thing, even through the 80s, or like young, like I think Frank Miller was like 20, he might have been 28 when he did Dark Knight, but he might have been like 25. He was like pretty young,
In his 20s.
which is
yeah.
insane, actually, kind of insane. But that youthful energy, it's a lot of people in the indie space are the ones who have that, and that is going to bubble up, I think. So
Yeah, unfortunately, what happened to comics is what the same unfortunate event that happened to a lot of things. It went mainstream,
yeah,
then became terrible. May
Yeah.
your hobbies go mainstream is the new curse these days.
Well, not to go on that rant, because that's honestly that's too easy. But geek culture becoming the acceptable pop culture is when we started to see the degradation of a lot of these things. And that's not to say that there isn't still quality being produced in the mainstream, because there actually is. As somebody who frequents their LCS on a weekly basis, there is still quality being produced. It's just like a small percentage, unfortunately. And so that's an opportunity, right? Like DC, Marvel, all those guys left the door wide open for talents like Narwhal, like Michael, like Lit, like Jared, to just be like, cool, so y'all are just going to give me a free open seat. I may as well take advantage of it and make the best of it and produce something of quality and produce something that's kick-ass. And that's exactly what these guys are doing.
I totally agree.
The other thing, real quick, too, is like everyone's getting their reps in and everyone's sharpening their sword. So when various opportunities do come up, like if I think of like Bancroft and Lit Dev, I know Jared's doing this, but like Lit Dev's got his books, but he could get hired tomorrow, like in a hypothetical, like by like Marvel or something, then he could deliver. So like, and it's because he's been working this whole time. So.
All right.
I would,
So
I would take that job from Marvel, but then I was like, let me see if I can write something with a proper structure in it and no
Yeah.
finger wagging and no
Yeah.
cringy, weird, horny lady stuff. We could do without like heroes again.
Horny
The
alien stuff either.
mainstream doesn't have an issue with structure. It has an issue with interest and quality. Like the
Ideas.
structure, like your 3-part spread over 6 issues for an arc. Structure is there. It's just not interesting or good for a large percentage of it. There are still books that do it. It's
There's
just
too many-
few and far between.
Too many horny women are at the helm. That's kind of the main problem. It's
Cat
not
Lady
women.
Comics.
It
It's
depends
horny
on which
women.
book you're reading, but yeah, that is a thing.
It's all these
Well
horny
read would
women.
be in
who hate
heaven.
me. It's kind of how it goes.
Maybe they just need to get hornier. Like when you're in hell, keep going. That's what they
Still
say.
loop
There-
back around.
I will say this, like, and this is important to me, because I think we need to, and I say this as somebody who I have a personal investment in the indie space, as being creative manager over the Rippaverse. The success of indie comics is incredibly important to me, whether it's us over the Rippaverse or whether it's guys like Narwhal, guys like Michael, guys like Lit and Jared, all of these guys. And I don't want to also undercut the importance of guys like Well Read, who are drawing attention to indies and trying to put out honest reviews about indie projects, because we can't rely forever upon the notion of, oh, well, the mainstream is just putting out nothing but crap, and so you should go support these books. Well, what happens when the pendulum inevitably swings back and all of a sudden these mega corporations get wise and are like, oh, well, we like money, so maybe we should put out stuff that isn't crap anymore. What if those books, those characters like Batman and Spider-Man and Superman are putting out good books again? We need to be able to stand on our own. We can't just rely on, we're just better than really crappy Spider-Man or Superman books. We're just good on our own, right? We're good because we're the quality that guys like Narwhal and Jared and Michael and Lit are putting out, right? That's important.
I agree.
That's incredibly important. We can't, the goal shouldn't be to just forever exist in a place where we're saying, well, at least we're not bad Spider-Man comics. No, we're standing next to the best of Spider-Man comics. That's better.
The mainstream is never going to be able to compete with the freedom of the indies to tell just any story.
Well, we have that freedom. We have that quality. They have the name and brand recognition, but we do have that advantage.
Yeah.
And so we should take advantage of that and combine that with genuine quality in art and storytelling, like everybody on this panel is striving towards and succeeding in. Again, like it doesn't, art and storytelling so often can be subjective in certain aspects. Again, like genre, not everybody's a horror person, not everybody is a fantasy or a sci-fi person, right? Not everybody is a person that's drawn to one specific art style or another. That's entirely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's subjectivity. But the team of Narwhal and Jared drew me in and captivated me with both a genre and an art style that otherwise I was not necessarily interested in by default. And they gave me something that I was like, I really genuinely enjoyed this and I want more of it.
Well, speaking of quality in the indies, let's check out Literature Devil's book, Dr. Alpha. So everybody, Lit's on his second storyline. He does great work. He does videos talking about writing, talking about comics. He's well versed in his field. So Lit, did you want to give us a little pitch for Doc Alpha 2?
Oh yeah, this is the second chance campaign for Miracle Child. It's been going on for a little while, but basically this is the first story. It's a complete story in of itself. Introduces the character, the world, Dr. Alpha. It's the conflict itself is I start off with the cliche, so it's like the alien invasion thing. Alien invasion, Mulvion. I never revealed this in the book, but his full name is Mulvion Mulvarius III, the Martian mastermind. And he has an invasion fleet, and so the heroes go and recruit Dr. Alpha, who is not only another evil scientist, but also has some personal ties to Mulvion, the Martian mastermind. So we get a lot of twists and turns, a lot of dramatic reveals, betrayals, all kinds of things. But in the second chance campaign, what I'm doing is I added 4 new pages to it to help because of the feedback. I identified some areas that might need a little more explaining or some more emphasis. So this new version, the second edition version, will have 4 additional pages that I think are well placed to help explain a few things and to help clarify a few things. So we'll be different than the first. We'll be different. But yeah, I think it's like 120. It's like 100. It's gonna be about 120 pages or so. I believe.
Guys, 120 pages. That's a meaty book.
Nice.
It's pretty
And
long.
this one does wrap up in 120.
Yeah, so everybody go check that out. Give Doc Alpha, a back. Make sure you get a copy and continue to support the indies, high quality books. Speaking of high quality books, the impeccable, incomparable. You're writing your magnum opus, essentially, Michael Bancroft, and it is called
Right out of the gate.
The Lucent.
Lucient.
Yes.
Really want to sell this to Well Read. Speaking of a big meat, this is
I'm sold already.
Phrasing.
I'll take 2. I'll take 2, sir.
Wow. Okay, so we're there. All right. I didn't have nearly enough whatever I was pouring into this glass.
We were talking earlier about decompressed and compressed stories, and I actually feel a little bit of a kindred spirit with Pear here, in that I too do just tend to write as though you're kind of watching a movie. That I sort of came from that side of it as well, and yeah, look, I've been getting really, really good reviews on this. Thankfully, it's all on my own site, so I can just have them up there. That's been great to read. I tell you, that's the best part of the whole process. Second to, and I actually like writing the story, is hearing back from readers what they think of it. So
Isn't it funny? It's like 4 years in between those two nice
yeah,
things.
you're like, oh my god, I'm so over this by now. I'm like way ahead of you, but thank you very much. No, it's great. It is really good, and yeah, this is my story that I refuse to let anyone know what the genre is, because that's part of the mystery too. And it follows Ella here.
It's YA fiction. That's his secret.
Yeah, well, look, it actually does appeal. I've a lot of kind of, I think the youngest who's read it that I know of is 11. And there's been a couple of them, and they both loved it. I'm like, wow, I didn't realize that it went that low, and that's great. That's, I think, what a lot of us should be sort of aiming for as well. But yeah, a lot of things that we talked about tonight, you find in this series as well. I tend to focus a little bit more on the mystery and the intrigue, as being one of the driving, engines of the story. Like, who is this? How are they connected? How does this whole thing work? And I find that incredibly fun as a storyteller, even though it can infuriate some readers sometimes. But thankfully, they've put their trust in me.
Just got to keep them hooked long enough for them to realize the payoff that you promised them, and then their minds will be blown.
Exactly. But yeah,
and then they get that same satisfaction that you had while writing it.
No, yeah, I cannot wait until people know everything that I know in the story, so I can hear back from them what they think of it. And I, just like with Hotel Story, I think comics should be a little bit off the wall, a little bit crazy, just a little bit, just push it and go in really weird places. So, the first two books here constitute what I would consider the sort of first act of a story. And, now you just get to, everything's set up now. So now I'm just going to just completely go a bit crazy with it all. And I look forward to hearing everyone's feedback then. We go in strange new places.
And you just put out the latest chapter, Painted Death.
Yep.
And you're currently fulfilling, or you've completed?
It's fulfilled. I mean, it's in sort of store mode now. If people get it, it will ship straight away. There's about 18 of the hardcovers left. The soft covers are in stock. And I'm currently working on 2 projects, or 3. Obviously, the follow-up book, the next one in the series. I've got a side book on the go with Rod Looper, kind of like a supplemental sort of story, set 6 months before the events of the first book. And I'm also working on a set of trading cards, which I'm going to put little clues and stuff on the back of to entice people to get as well. So lots happening in the world of the Lucent.
Excellent.
Amazing.
And where can people find that at? Can they
It's
get regular updates? There you go.
Link
everybody in the chat, lucentcomic.com.
Link in the chat, link in the description. So everybody go check it out. And a product that probably needs no introduction, guys, the Ribbiverse. We have NDA Andrew here, creative director of the Rippaverse. You guys are blowing the industry away in the indies. Horseman is your latest project. Oh, I didn't get a picture. Let's jump over here. I really want to show this because this stuff is really killer. Where's a good shot here? All right, let's view this product. I'm having trouble getting up a nice image. There we go. Nice interiors here.
The beautiful thing, you guys said this earlier, the beautiful thing about the indies is we have all of this kind of unused space to work within. Now, we over at the Rippaverse have picked up a lot of guys that have been discarded from the mainstream, guys like Barron, guys like Chuck Dixon and Joe Bennett and a number of other guys. Some guys honestly are still doing cover or interior work for the mainstream because they're just that talented, and the industry's like, yeah, I guess you can still do that over there, on your free time. We still need you over here because you do that good of work. The indie industry is so important because this is how we get fresh ideas. There was a time where the mainstream industry was what it was prior to Marvel. People forget that. Prior to that which DC was bringing to the table. This is just the next step. This is just the next phase. Guys like Narwhal and Jared, guys like Michael and Lit. What we're trying to do over at the Rippaverse, we're all just trying to continually grow the comic book industry and geekdom, fandom. Those of us who love this medium, comic books, right? It doesn't matter who you get your comic books from. If that person is making something that you deem to be of quality, that is grabbing you from a story and an art perspective, that matters. That's important. I recently, what was it, last week or 2 weeks ago, received my copy of Shadow Sentry Origins from Eric Nineltowski. I apologize if I mispronounced that. And, I think, was it Clayton Barton helped with the art on that. It's hard to see because it's a foil variant cover. So I apologize for that.
Let me enlarge you.
Oh, no worries. But this is a beautiful, beautiful cover. The interior artwork was fantastic. Indies are important because that's how you grow your genre. That's how you grow your medium. It's important to not just be static and then just have one person producing everything. Over at the Rippaverse, we're trying to do that. We're trying to grow. We've got new writers. We've got veteran writers. Like anybody that's a comic book fan knows Mike Barron and Chuck Dixon. If you say you don't, you're probably lying. Those guys have been writing comic books longer than many of us have been alive. I grew up with Chuck's work. I grew up with Mike's work. It's incredibly important. Indie guys like Chuck and Mike now because they got discarded by the mainstream, but also new talents, young, fresh talents like Narwhal and Jared and Lit and Michael and Eric Nineltowski and guys like Chad Larson doing books like Death Shroud. This is all super important because it gives us more options. And if we're fans of a thing, we're fans of that thing. We can enjoy multiple things. I'm a fan of The Flash, but I also like Spider-Man. I can like both. I can like characters from both of those publishers. I can also like characters from other indie publishers. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. So I encourage everybody in the chat to support indies, support books that you deem worthy of your dollar and your time. Showcase that by giving those publishers your dollar and your time. If you were interested by the discussion tonight on Hotel Story by Jared and by Narwhal, please, Narwhal, where can people in the chat get their hands on your book? Because I want people who are curious about tonight's discussion to be able to support you and be able to support good, genuinely good indie comics.
Yeah, thanks. Right now I just have my eBay, and I do 2 or 3 Indiegogos a year, or like Fund My Comic or Kickstarter or whatever. But yeah.
Well, Narwhal's being a little modest. So we do have Narwhal Press. And you can get Earthbound here. Narwhal's first foray into the indie
This
scene.
is the sampler too. So it's a 2-part story, but part 1 you can get for free. So it's part 1 is 135 pages. Like classic Narwhal style.
135 pages for part 1. For the love of all that is good. That's people don't realize who aren't familiar with the back end of comic book production and publishing. That's a hefty book. That's a lot of meat, guys.
True.
Please support something like that. That's fantastic.
I'm old enough to remember when, paper wasn't exorbitant and
yeah. I'm remembering the freaking Sonic the Hedgehog comic books that I would get from the Safeway when I was living in California, and I would go to the grocery store with my mom or my dad, and I would have X amount of dollars, not very much for my allowance in that given week, and I would grab a book or two off of the shelf, off of the rack, and be like, all right, well, this is what I'm coming along with. I helped you carry and pick out all the stuff and stick it in the cart, and this is my reward. Right. And the paper quality for that was pretty low. The paper quality for a lot of these indie projects is markedly higher.
Yeah. So everyone look at this art and then look at Jared's art. Can you tell the difference? It's like that meme, they're the same person, or corporate needs you to tell the difference between these 2 photos.
I was the ignorant jackass earlier at the beginning of the stream. I didn't know the difference. I had to be told before we went live. Oh yeah, Narwhal didn't draw that. Are you serious?
This is what happens when you have nice throbbing talent splooging all over a blank page.
No, this is just fantastic collaborative talent.
Giving birth to a great
collaborative talent.
You draw a much hotter androgynous black chick, Narwhal. So I think that's a dead giveaway.
Is that a compliment? Is that what that is?
It is. Yeah, exudes the beauty from her
very
androgyny.
strong, Miles Morales energy in the face.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's
cleavage is killer.
You said compliment, and I don't know if I associate those two things.
You captured Miles Morales' cleavage perfectly.
Exactly. I love these guns though too, like the neon green. That's a pretty cool sniper rifle. So
genuinely, Narwhal, Jared, you guys made a fantastic part 1. Please hurry the heck up and finish part 2 so I can find out what happens next. You guys did an absolutely outstanding job.
On the cover, like Phineas or Ferb. It's one of those guys. In the middle, he's carrying a clipboard. He's in the middle here.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I call him Note. It's Note and Blogart are the 2 guys. Yeah. And they're like puppets. Like the Earthbound universe has puppets in it, basically.
There's a huge variety too in your character designs. Like this guy's kind of cartoony and goofish, and this guy's looks a little bit more anime style. And then you got a teddy bear back here, and it's like you're just going for everything. Of course, hot chick, over here. So it's just.
I mean, who doesn't like that, right?
Yeah, they're all here. They're all here to party.
Yeah,
it's cool.
Something for everyone.
Guys, by the way, I'm dog sitting, and I think the dog has to take a crap. And so I don't need to hear
That's a good.
Should probably let it do that before it does it right next to you.
Yeah. So if you guys are still hanging out, I'll come back. But I'll be like 10 minutes maybe. But
all right, cool. Let's wrap the stream. Thank you, Narwhal. Thank you, Jared. Thank you to the panel for all your thoughts. Andrew, Lit Dev, Michael Bancroft. All of you are incredible, impeccable, super talents. Wish you all the best. Wish the dog a good crap. Please, everyone, have a good night.
Narwhal.
Yeah.